Why your inner child is making you emotionally dependent. Everyone says heal your inner child. But what if that's why your boundaries keep collapsing? What if the very tool that should build resilience is training you to outsource your feelings, your plans, your life? Here's the simple truth. Inner child work can heal, or it can hijack. I'll show you the difference. Healthy integration versus emotional dependence, wearing a wellness halo. We'll define exactly what inner child meant in therapy, where it got distorted online, and the one shift that ends the dependence loop. Remember this detail. It matters. Compassion without standards turns into permission to stay stuck. Definitions that actually help. Okay, so basically, inner child didn't start as a brand. It started as a shorthand in psychotherapy to describe childlike ego states we all carry. In Transactional Analysis, Eric Berne mapped 3 ego states inside each of us: parent, adult, child. Child is the part that feels, plays, protests, and remembers, both the vulnerable hurts and the spontaneous joy. The adult runs reality testing and planning. The parent carries internalized rules and care. Healthy functioning is integration. Adult in the driver's seat, parent offering guidance, child bringing aliveness. Think of it like a team. The child supplies emotion and energy. The adult sets direction. The parent sets limits and care. The simple version is, all 3 voices get heard, one voice decides. Here's the weird part. Online, inner child often gets treated like the sovereign self, not a state. That's where trouble starts. When a temporary child state becomes your identity, standards drop, and life gets outsourced to feelings. There are 2 key child states therapists often name. First, the vulnerable child, the tender, hurt part that needs soothing and protection. Second, the adaptive or protective child, the scrappy, clever part that learns strategies, people-pleasing, perfectionism, withdrawal, to survive. Both deserve compassion, but compassion has a job: to help the adult resume leadership. It's not meant to hand the keys to the child. Here's what most people miss. Compassion and permission feel similar in the moment, but lead to opposite outcomes. Compassion says, I see why this is hard. I'll help you do the hard thing. Permission says, because this is hard, you don't have to do it. One builds capacity, the other freezes it. Quick test you can use today. Is this soothing or absolving? Soothe if it helps you regulate enough to act. Breathing, a short walk, a call that grounds you. Absolve if it delays action indefinitely. 2 hours of inner child journaling to avoid a 5-minute email. If the ritual ends with reality contact and movement, it's soothing. If it ends with postponing life, it's absolving. Healthy inner child work aims for integration, not replacement. The goal isn't to live as your child. It's to reparent your child parts so your adult grows stronger. In other words, you're not healing to earn comfort. You're healing to increase capacity. The adult sets standards, keeps agreements, and repairs after misses. The parent provides warmth and boundaries. The child brings signal and spark. When the child runs the show, standards get negotiated by mood. When the adult sits in the seat, feelings get a vote, not a veto. And that distinction changes everything. How inner child work gets hijacked. Here's where it slips. Algorithms love what's soothing, aesthetic, and instantly relatable. Long, uncomfortable skill building, not so clickable. So feeds fill with rituals of comfort, blankets, baths, soft voiceovers. While the unsexy part, like negotiating a boundary at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday, gets almost no airtime. Over time, the vibe becomes the value. Relief is framed as healing, and because relief feels good, we mistake it for growth. Everything clicked when I realized how language fuels this. Trauma terms migrate from the clinic to captions and slowly become identity. I have anxious attachment turns into I am anxiously attached, then into I'm someone who can't handle space. The child's momentary state gets welded to your name tag. Now any discomfort is reinterpreted as evidence of fragility. Proof you should retreat, soothe, and wait until you feel ready. The counterintuitive part is how compassion becomes a get-out-of-standards-free card. Be gentle with yourself is solid until it expands to don't ask anything hard of yourself. That slide is subtle. 1 week you're taking a breather after a trigger. 3 months later, you've lowered your standards for sleep, money, and follow-through, all in the name of not pushing your inner child. The child gets permanent amnesty. The adult gets demoted to Uber driver for emotions. Schedules, sleep, money, and relationships get outsourced to how I feel. If mornings feel tender, you skip the gym. If budgeting feels constricting, you honor your inner child's spontaneity. If a hard conversation feels activating, you cancel and call it self-care. It sounds kind, but it trains your nervous system to pair relief with avoidance. The ritual works short term. You feel lighter, but the avoidance quietly shrinks your world. Here's what most people miss. Attachment anxieties get reframed as needs others must meet on demand. Instead of, I'm anxious and working my plan, it becomes, if you loved me, you'd text back within 5 minutes. Co-regulation, which is healthy in doses, morphs into dependence. Partners are cast as permanent regulators, not collaborators. The covert contract shows up. If I'm fragile, you must accommodate. It's rarely spoken, but it runs the show. Social platforms reward this framing. Posts that say, you don't have to be strong, outperform posts that say, you can be kind and keep a promise. Influencers model soothing, not standards, because soothing packages well. Brands follow with candles, journals, and retreats. Products that lower arousal but don't raise capacity. The market sells a feeling. Your life quietly sells off competence. Okay, so basically, this hijack has a predictable arc. First, a trigger drops you into a child state. Second, a soothing ritual lowers your distress. Third, you interpret the relief as a sign to delay action until it feels right. Fourth, avoidance prevents new learning, so the trigger stays loaded. Fifth, because your world narrows, you need more rituals more often. It looks like a wellness routine. Functionally, it's a dependence loop. Here's the weird part. Softness begins to read as depth. Speaking gently, crying openly, and holding space are treated as maturity, even when they're not paired with repair, planning, or follow-through. We confuse vulnerability with capability. Real integration pairs both. The tear and the task, the breath and the boundary. Without the task, vulnerability stalls into performance. A quick micro-story. A client told me, I journaled for 2 hours to honor my inner child instead of sending the invoice. She felt calm that night. 3 weeks later, she was panicked about rent. The ritual worked, at reducing arousal, not at building a life. When we flipped it, 3 grounding minutes, send the invoice, then journal. Her stress dropped and her competence rose. Same tools, different order. Nobody explains this right, but the shift is simple. Soothing is a prelude to standards, not a substitute. That's the hinge that turns compassion from indulgence into integration. And to make this tangible, we need to define emotional dependence precisely, so you can spot it in yourself without shame and change it without theatrics. Emotional dependence defined. Let's name it cleanly. Emotional dependence is when your feelings need an external babysitter. Instead of your adult setting direction and your parent offering care, your nervous system outsources stability to other people, apps, rituals, or timing. The simple version is, I can't settle until something outside me settles me. Why this matters? If relief always arrives from the outside, you never build the inner muscles that hold boundaries, make plans, or repair after missteps. Your life stays governed by other people's responses, and by whether today feels good. That's fragile, even if it looks gentle. What does it look like day to day? Approval seeking shows up as checking faces and feeds before decisions. Reassurance loops sound like, are we okay? 6 times a day. Crisis texting turns minor discomfort into urgent notifications. Meltdown leverage shows up as tears or shutdowns used to steer outcomes. Often unintentionally, but functionally, it works like a lever. The covert contract underneath says, if I'm fragile, you must accommodate. Notice, it's not stated, it's implied. My distress assigns you a job. Here's the weird part. This can feel spiritual. Softness reads as depth. Speaking in therapeutic language, naming triggers, and asking for space or presence can look advanced. But without standards and repair, it's aesthetic maturity. The litmus test. After the soft talk, do behaviors change? Do agreements hold under stress? If not, we're mistaking atmosphere for growth. Okay, so basically, there's a brain reason this sticks. State-dependent learning means the state you're in during practice is the state you'll access during stress. If you only practice calm by stepping away, your brain learns. Relief lives in avoidance. That's negative reinforcement. The relief rewards the retreat, so retreat repeats. Safety seeking becomes the default prediction. Feel threat, find fixer. In other words, your predictive brain is efficient, not wise. It tags whatever lowered arousal last time as the solution. If the solution was your partner's instant reply, you'll crave the ping tomorrow. If it was a ritual that delays action, the ritual grows while your life shrinks. That's how dependence hides inside self-care. Let's make it concrete. Example 1. You feel a wave of anxiety before hitting send on a job application. Dependent pattern. Text 3 friends for pep talks. Scroll for an hour until the sensation dips. Then promise yourself you'll apply when it feels aligned. Result. Temporary relief, 0 reps logged. Independent pattern. 2 minutes of breathing. 1 call to a pre-chosen anchor. Then submit. Relief comes after action, not before. Over time, your brain pairs competence with calm. Clinicians who work with codependency, for example, Dr. Dawnelise Snipes, often highlight this external reassurance loop as the engine of dependence, and flipping the sequence as the cure. Example 2. In a relationship, you label, I feel abandoned when you're offline for 2 hours, as a need your partner must meet. Dependence demands constant co-regulation. Integration reframes. I feel that spike. Here's my self-soothing sequence. Here's our agreed check-in window. Feelings get a vote. Agreements get the final say. Here's what most people miss. Dependence isn't about needing people. Secure people need people. Dependence is about needing them to manage the parts you're refusing to train. Co-regulation is healthy when it tapers, because your capacity is rising. It's dependence when the dosage escalates to keep you functional. So the definition, tightened. Emotional dependence is a pattern where external relief controls internal behavior, enforced by reassurance, avoidance, and covert contracts, reinforced by the nervous system's love of immediate relief. Call it what it is, so you can change what it does. The dependence loop. Here's the mechanism that locks it in. A trigger fires, a look, a text delay, a bill, a calendar alert, and your system drops into a child state. That's normal. Next, you reach for a soothing ritual. Journaling, voice notes, tea, scrolling, venting. Distress drops. Relief feels like progress, so you decide to wait until it feels right. That's the quiet pivot into avoidance. Then life narrows. Fewer reps, fewer exposures, fewer chances to learn that you can feel afraid and still act. The loop resets at the next trigger, a little stronger. Behaviorally, this is classic negative reinforcement. You remove discomfort by avoiding the hard action, and the removal teaches your brain. Do that again. The relief is the reward. So the ritual grows teeth. The more it works at lowering arousal, the more it hijacks action. That's why your routines can look healthy and still drain competence. The ritual isn't the problem, the order is. Soothing before standards cements avoidance. Soothing then standards breaks it. Cognitive fusion keeps it spinning. I feel like a scared kid morphs into I am a scared kid. Language hardens around identity. You stop asking, what would my adult do? And start asking, what would make my child feel safe right now? Safety becomes the metric for movement. But here's the twist. Safety grows from movement. Confidence is the residue of action, not a prerequisite for it. There's social reinforcement, too. Partners and friends become regulators. At first, it's co-regulation. They breathe with you, reality check, remind you of the plan. But if action doesn't follow, the support shifts into scaffolding your life. They start managing your triggers, texting faster, shielding you from conflict, taking tasks off your plate. The world rearranges to prevent your discomfort. That feels loving in the short term. Over time, it's a leash, on you and on them. Work mirrors this. You delay a proposal because your inner child needs more space. A teammate covers. Relief hits. The pattern learns. Stall, and someone rescues. The rescuer gets praised for being understanding. You get praised for honoring your needs. The project moves, but your capacity doesn't. Multiply by months, and you've trained a system to accommodate your avoidance. The long-term cost is learned helplessness in a wellness hoodie. You outsource stress tolerance to people and rituals, then call it listening to your body. Your nervous system becomes exquisitely sensitive to micro-threats because it never gets the reps to recalibrate. Your standards quietly drift down to whatever your most anxious day can handle. Life shrinks to fit your least trained state. Neuro-wise, the prediction loop tightens. Your brain forecasts. Hard thing equals overwhelm. Relief equals retreat. Each time you retreat, prediction error drops. Your brain got it right. So it doubles down. The only way to update that model is to act under arousal and survive. Not white-knuckling forever. Brief, graded exposures paired with support. Relief comes after the behavior, teaching your system. We can do hard things and then calm down. Neuroscientists describe this as state-dependent learning. The state you're in when relief arrives becomes the state your brain tags as safe. If relief follows avoidance, your system encodes avoid equals safe. If relief follows action, it encodes act equals safe. That's why the order matters more than the tool. Microstory. A client feared phone calls. The loop was trigger, script, postpone, binge, soothe. We set a cap, 1 minute of breathing, then dial. After each call, soothe 10 minutes. Day 1, she shook. Day 3, her body predicted less doom. Day 10, she could place 5 calls without a spike. Same tools, breathing and support. Reordered to reward action, not avoidance. Here's what most people miss. The loop isn't broken by willpower spikes. It's broken by pre-committed standards that survive mood swings. You don't decide in the child state. You execute what the adult already decided. One more twist. Shame accelerates dependence. If you moralize a relapse, you'll chase bigger soothing to numb the shame, which strengthens avoidance. Better to debrief like a pilot. What was the trigger? What was the ritual? Where did avoidance sneak in? What's the next rep? So how do you know you're in the loop? Relief comes before action, supports escalate, standards erode under stress, and your world gets smaller. The fix starts by flipping the order. Soothe just enough to move, act to update prediction, soothe to consolidate. Next, recruit people as spotters, not saviors, short assists, then taper. And remember the identity line that matters. You're the adult who shows up for you, even when a child part is loud. 7 red flags your healing is holding you back. Here's what most people miss. You don't notice dependence from the inside because it feels caring. So let's self-audit. 7 red flags. If 2 or more hit, your healing might be holding you back. Red flag 1. Your boundaries are always framed as other people's behavior. Listen for this sentence. My boundary is that you don't. That's a rule for them, not a boundary for you. Healthy boundaries are what you'll do under certain conditions. If messages after 10 p.m. continue, I'll mute my phone overnight. If your boundaries rely on others being perfect, you're delegating your nervous system to their choices. Red flag 2. Decisions are delayed until your inner child feels ready. Readiness is a feeling. Decisions are a calendar event. The adult sets a deadline. The child gets comfort on the way. A simple fix, pre-commit decision dates. I choose the therapist by Friday. If the inner child isn't ready, you offer 5 minutes of soothing, then you keep the date. Feelings get a vote, not a veto. Red flag 3. Partners are recruited as permanent co-regulators. Healthy. Occasional co-regulation that tapers as capacity rises. Dependence. A fixed protocol requires constant check-ins, immediate replies, and real-time tracking to keep you functional. Test. Could you tolerate a planned 4-hour window without contact while running your plan? If the answer is always no, you've made their presence your regulator. Red flag 4. Therapy has become a confession booth, not a practice ground. You disclose beautifully, cry well, and leave with insights. Then repeat next week with the same story. Insight without reps is spiritual entertainment. Ask your therapist for behavioral assignments with measurable reps, time caps, and review. If therapy can't be measured between sessions, you're paying for catharsis, not competence. Red flag 5. You use spiritual or therapeutic language to dodge discomfort. Watch for phrases like not aligned, honoring my nervous system, or energetically wrong, when they always show up right before hard tasks, feedback, or accountability. Language becomes camouflage. Swap vibes for verbs. What exact condition would make it aligned? What skill are you training? What's the next observable action? Red flag 6. Progress equals less life exposure, not more. You celebrate saying no, but months later your world is smaller. Fewer social reps, fewer professional risks, fewer honest conversations. Healing should expand your map. More places you can go, more intensity you can ride, more differences you can tolerate. If your life only feels safe in narrower corridors, you're optimizing for avoidance. Red flag 7. Endless processing, no measurable reps. You're journaling, pulling cards, voice noting, and integrating. But your calendar shows 0 difficult calls made, 0 boundaries executed, 0 tasks shipped under discomfort. Replace, I processed a lot with counts. How many exposures did you run? How many standards did you keep under stress? What did you repair and by when? Here's a quick micro checklist you can run weekly. 1. Did I keep a boundary that cost me comfort? 2. Did I act before I felt ready at least once? 3. Did I reduce any reassurance frequency by even 20%? 4. Did I do 1 stretch rep in a domain I've been avoiding? If you can't tick 2 of those, your healing rituals might be buying relief instead of building range. Okay, so this might feel confronting. That's good data. The point isn't to shame the soothing, it's to put it back in its proper place. A useful reframe. Soothing is the pit stop, standards are the race, stretch is the lap. If your entire week lives at the pit stop, your car looks polished but never finishes a circuit. Let me give you a fast side-by-side to make this click. Dependence version of a boundary. You can't speak to me like that. Integration version. If the sarcasm continues, I'll pause the conversation and resume tomorrow at noon. Dependence version of a decision. I'll apply when I feel regulated. Integration version. I'll apply by 4 p.m. I'll do 2 minutes of breathing beforehand. Dependence version of support. Text me when you arrive, when you're inside, when you're leaving. Integration version. Let's set a check-in at 9. I'll run my self-soothing ladder until then. Another tell, meltdown leverage. If tears or shutdowns routinely result in others cancelling plans, changing tone, or dropping standards, even without you intending manipulation, the system is training around your least regulated state. Compassion isn't coddling. Compassion paired with standards says, I love you. Take 10, then we'll finish the task. Everything clicked for a client when she realized her processing evenings always landed the night before deadlines. We capped processing to 15 minutes, executed one task, then allowed more reflection. 2 weeks later, she reported less dread and more pride, with the same rituals reordered. Remember the promise from earlier. There's one shift that ends dependence. These red flags are your map to spot the drift. You don't need a personality transplant. You need to flip the order. Soothe enough to act by standard, then stretch small and often. And if you're wondering how to do that reliably without burning out or ghosting your feelings, that's where the integration framework lands next. Where it went off the rails, history plus distortion. To see how we drifted, we need the map we started with. The original thread, object relations and transactional analysis. In object relations, clinicians noticed how internal objects, felt images of caregivers, shape our self-soothing and expectations. In transactional analysis, Byrne described parent, adult, and child as ego states, modes we move through, not permanent identities. The inner child wasn't a sovereign ruler. It was a shorthand for the emotional, playful, wounded parts that the adult could understand and reparent. The aim was integration. Strengthen adult reality testing, update parent rules, comfort the child, then act. Here's what most people miss. Those early models were pragmatic. They asked, what happens in real conversations? What does your nervous system do under stress? Which state spoke just now? The adult seat was central. You could feel like a kid at 2 p.m. and still make a 2:15 decision. Therapists used the child metaphor to locate the pain and mobilize care while keeping behavior accountable to reality. Then came the 90s pop psych boom. Healing the inner child broke out of clinics into talk shows, workbooks, and weekend seminars. There was a huge upside. People finally had language for buried hurt and permission to treat themselves with warmth. But there was a downside baked into mass culture. Nuance collapsed. A therapeutic heuristic turned into a lifestyle identity. Posters said honor your child, but skipped the footnote, so your adult can lead. The culture remembered the hug and forgot the homework. Everything clicked when publishers realized vulnerability sells more than boundaries. The best takeaways, recognize trauma patterns, practice reparenting, build secure behaviors, got packaged with the worst. Endless catharsis without calibration. You could cry, journal, and forgive endlessly with no bridge into planning, agreements, and repair. The adult functions, reality testing, standards, consequences, felt too sharp for soft branding, so they got trimmed out. Social media poured jet fuel on that drift. Platforms reward what's instantly legible. A comforting quote, a soft routine, a tearful confession delivered in perfect lighting. Long-form skill building, like graded exposure, boundary math, or renegotiating covert contracts, doesn't fit neatly in 30 seconds. So the algorithm elevated aesthetics of regression, blankets, baby talk voiceovers, little me rituals. Reassurance performs well. Repetition of reps does not. Here's the counterintuitive part. Commercialization didn't just offer support, it quietly swapped outcomes. Products promised healing by lowering arousal, candles, baths, crystals, retreats, while skipping the behaviors that raise capacity. Difficult calls, uncomfortable feedback, budgeting, consistent sleep. Relief is easier to sell than responsibility. And when relief became the metric for progress, avoidance could dress up as self-care and walk straight into the win column. Here's the quick timeline. In the 1990s, wellness left clinics and entered bookstores and talk shows. In the 2010s, it scaled into an industry built around recurring products and content. By the early 2020s, algorithms discovered that struggle plus soothing outperformed struggle plus skill building. Creators adapted. Soft voiceovers beat homework. Comfort shots beat boundary reps. The inner child, once a clinical metaphor, became a lifestyle identity because identity and aesthetics are easier to package than standards and practice. Another distortion. Trauma vocabulary drifted from description to identity. In therapy, anxious attachment is a pattern you can train. Online, it became a persona you must honor. The vulnerable child, originally a real part to be soothed and guided, became the CEO. The adaptive child, people-pleasing, perfectionistic, avoidant, was reframed as your truest essence rather than yesterday's survival hack. If the child is the truest you, asking it to do hard things sounds like betrayal, not growth. Meanwhile, a second wave of content equated softness with depth. Whispered content, slow breaths, and holding space were treated as maturity, regardless of whether agreements held. But in the clinical roots, tenderness and truth traveled together. Therapists validated pain and then returned clients to the task. Make the call, keep the boundary, show up to the repair. When the adult seat disappears, compassion unhooks from consequences, and dependence looks noble. Let's be precise. In TA, the adult calibrates the parent's rules, updating, never upset anyone, to speak respectfully and stay specific. The child brings energy and signal, this matters, which the adult uses to aim decisions. In secure attachment terms, think craves, consistency, responsiveness, attention, validation, encouragement, safety. Behaviors caregivers provide and adults can recreate internally, a framing highlighted by clinicians like Dr. Dornelise Snipes when discussing codependency and insecure attachment. The internet remix often kicks the adult out. Parent becomes only nurturing, stripped of limit setting. Child becomes executive authority. Adult shrinks to a spokesperson who explains feelings, rather than a leader who chooses actions. That inversion is the hinge where healthy care turns into chronic avoidance. Commercial incentives keep the loop alive. If your progress is measured by how soothed you feel, you'll need recurring products to maintain healing. If your progress is measured by capacity, more reps under stress, more integrity under conflict, you need fewer props and more practice. One can be bought, the other must be trained. Guess which gets funded, promoted, and placed in your feed? History also shows how we lost the middle step. Standards. Early reparenting models paired compassion with structure. Bedtime routines, money plans, limits on screen time, graded exposures to feared situations. Pop psych kept the lullaby and dropped the lights out. That's why so many people work on childhood wounds for years and still freeze at a calendar invite. They got the care without the scaffolding. Here's the weird part. Some creators did warn about this drift. They talked about secure attachment behaviors, tapering co-regulation, and practicing discomfort in small doses. Those posts underperform because they ask for effort and track results. The audience isn't broken, the incentives are. We click the short-term nervous system dip. We scroll past the long-term nervous system training. So, where did it go off the rails? Not in the idea of an inner child. That's still useful. It derailed when the child metaphor outranked the adult function, when soothing replaced standards, when identity fused with wounds, and when markets monetized relief over range. The fix isn't to abandon inner child work. It's to put it back in its original frame. A compassionate doorway into adult responsibilities, not an exit from them. And that leads directly to integration, the adult seat of the self. Integration, the adult seat of the self. Everything we've covered points here. The aim of healing isn't to crown the child. It's to restore the adult seat of the self. Reparenting isn't a permanent nursery. It's training. We soothe the vulnerable child, retire the adaptive child's outdated strategies, calibrate the parent, and then hand the steering wheel back to adult. That's integration. Many parts consulted, one leader deciding. So what does the adult actually do? 4 core functions. Reality testing. What's true, not what I fear. Standards. What I've pre-committed to do under stress. Planning. When, where, how with guardrails. Repair. How I respond when I miss, own, amend, and reset, not spiral or perform penance. The simple version is, the adult tells the truth, sets the bar, runs the play, and cleans it up. Here's the paradox most people avoid. More self-compassion requires more self-responsibility. If compassion always cancels expectations, capacity stalls. When compassion serves standards, capacity grows. I know why this is hard, and I'm doing it anyway, is the adult's voice. It treats feelings like weather data, useful for gear, irrelevant to whether the train leaves. Okay, so basically, we're moving from needs to agreements. Needs are real, but making other people responsible for regulating them keeps you stuck. Agreements turn yearning into protocols. Instead of, I need constant reassurance, the adult says, here's our check-in window, here's my self-soothing ladder, here's what I'll do if I spiral. From save me to here's my plan, with specific behaviors both parties can follow. Let's ground this with a micro-story. A client used to cancel difficult meetings under the banner of inner child overwhelm. We built an adult protocol. 5 minutes of soothing, confirm start time, state agenda in 1 sentence, ask 1 direct question, note 1 next step, then debrief. She still felt scared, but the protocol carried her. After 3 reps, fear dropped because competence rose. Compassion plus standards, executed as a plan. Here's the weird part. Owning the adult doesn't mean becoming rigid or cold. It means your kindness has a backbone. The nurturing parent in you offers warmth and limit. Yes, it's scary. Yes, we're going. The playful child adds spark. Let's bring coffee, add a small reward, keep this human. The adult integrates both without outsourcing the decision. Everything clicked when people realize the adult is not a vibe. It's a sequence. Try this quick checklist before hard moments. Reality test. What's verifiably true right now? Standard. What did I pre-commit to do regardless of mood? Plan. What's step 1, and what's my time cap? Repair. If this goes sideways, what's my next honest action? Notice how that checklist leaves room for feeling, but doesn't wait for it to be perfect. Feelings get a vote, not a veto. That line matters. If the child vetoes, your world shrinks. If the adult votes last, your world expands. From a relationship angle, the adult shifts how you ask for support. Clean ask. I'm triggered, I'll run my ladder. Could you sit with me for 10 minutes at 9 p.m? If you can't, I'll call my backup. That's dependence resistant. It's specific, time-bound, and backed by your own plan. It protects the bond and your competence. From a work angle, the adult upgrades motivation to mechanics. You don't wait to feel aligned. You align your environment to your standard. 2-minute prep ritual, 15-minute execution block, 2-minute review. Then track reps, not vibes. Count what counts. Hard calls made, boundaries executed, drafts shipped under arousal. Adults measure what they want more of. You might wonder, what if I relapse into avoidance? You will. Adults plan for that too. No shaming. Quick debrief. What triggered? Which part grabbed the wheel? Which standard got fuzzy? What micro-adjustment now? Maybe the soothing window was too long. Maybe the standard was too vague. Maybe the plan lacked a first atomic step. Adjust and rerun today, not next month. Here's what most people miss. The identity shift is the lever. The sentence that changes behavior is simple. I'm the adult who shows up for me. Not one day. Not when I feel ready. Now, say it before the act. Then prove it in the smallest possible way. The brain learns from evidence. Stack tiny proofs until your nervous system predicts capability. This brings us back to the teaser, the one shift that ends dependence. Its order, from soothing first to standards first. Soothe to the point of action, execute the pre-committed standard, then soothe again. That's how compassion serves capacity. That's how the child feels safe without running your life. And that's the bridge into a practical model you can start using today. The 3S framework, Soothe Standards Stretch. Okay, so basically, this is the order that turns compassion into capacity. Soothe just enough to act, execute your standards, then stretch to grow range. Same tools everyone posts about, breath work, journaling, co-regulation. Reordered so relief comes after behavior, not instead of it. This sequencing aligns with what behavioral science and attachment clinicians note. When relief follows action, the nervous system updates its prediction toward, I can handle activation, which reduces future spikes. Soothe means regulate enough to move, not to avoid moving. Think reduce intensity by 30%, not reach Zen. Use time-capped tools. 1 minute of box breathing, 30 seconds of cold water on wrists, 3 grounding points you can name out loud, or a quick body shake. If you call a friend, make it a pre-agreed 2-minute anchor, not an open-ended vent. If you journal, 1 prompt, 5 lines max. What's true? What matters? What's step 1? Soothe is a ramp, not a couch. Standards are the pre-commit rules you keep under stress. You decide them when your adult is in the seat, not mid-trigger. They're specific, visible, and time-bound. 2 minutes of breath, send the invoice by 4 p.m., debrief at 4:10. If sarcasm starts, pause and reschedule to noon tomorrow. No reassurance texts before the agreed check-in. Run self-soothing ladder first. Standards remove the debate with your child part. Feelings get a vote. The standard gets the final call. Stretch is planned exposure that nudges your edge without flooding you. It's not punishment, it's progressive loading. If phone calls spike you to an 8, stretch at a 5. 1 voicemail to a friendly contact, script in hand, 90 seconds max. If conflict terrifies you, stretch with a single direct sentence in a low-stakes chat. I'd like us to be on time tomorrow. Then log it. Range grows when you collect reps at tolerable doses. Here's the weird part. Most people try to stretch first, then soothe in a panic, and then drop their standards altogether. Flip it. Preload your soothe menu and your standards, then stretch in tiny, boring increments. Boring is good. Boring means your nervous system can encode success. Let's run a microcycle for a hard conversation. Scenario: you need to tell a teammate their last-minute changes stall the project. Soothe: 1 minute of box breathing. Plant both feet. Name 3 objects in the room. Text your anchor. Starting convo at 2, no reply needed. Standards: open with 1 clear observation, 1 impact, 1 request. Keep it under 6 minutes. If it derails, pause and reschedule for tomorrow at 10 with agenda. Stretch: deliver the first sentence verbatim. When edits arrive after end of day, I need to push our timeline. Ask 1 question. Can we lock a 3 p.m. edit cutoff? Debrief: 2 minutes to note what worked and 1 tweak for next time. Guardrails keep soothe from becoming avoidance. Time caps, count caps, and pre-commit caps. Example: 2 total minutes of breathing before action. 1 anchor text. 5 lines of journaling, then go. If you blow a cap, you still act. No, 1 more minute. The adult honors the clock the adult set. Guardrails also make standards real. Write them somewhere visible. Use if/then language. If anxiety spikes above 7, then I reduce scope, not cancel. If I miss the 4 p.m. send, then I ship by 4:30 with a 1-line note. I owe myself a 5-minute review of why. Standards without consequences are wishes. Keep consequences behavioral, not moral. No shaming. Just a small cost or adjustment that keeps integrity intact. For stretch, track reps, not vibes. A tiny spreadsheet or notes app. Date, domain, rep type, intensity before/after, and outcome. Over 2 weeks, your brain sees pattern. We do 1 hard thing daily and survive. That record updates prediction, which lowers future spikes. This is how you get less "do I feel ready?" and more "I run my play." Example across domains. Health, soothe, 30 seconds of breath, and a fast-track playlist. Standards, 10-minute walk after lunch, rain or shine. Stretch, add 2 minutes and 1 hill on Fridays. Relationships, soothe, self-soothing ladder for 5 minutes. Standards, ask cleanly once, no coded tests. Stretch, tolerate a 4-hour planned silence window twice a week. Work, soothe, sip water, box breathe, set a 5-minute timer. Standards, ship a messy draft by 11. Stretch, ask 1 person for targeted feedback within 24 hours. Common sabotage patterns to watch. Soothe drift, your 2-minute breath turns into a 20-minute ritual because it feels productive. Fix, set a visible timer, stand up when it ends. Standard creep, you start negotiating mid-trigger. Fix, speak the standard out loud. At 3 I send, then move your body toward the action. Stretch leap, you pick a 10 when you needed a 5, then crash and call yourself not ready. Fix, scale down until it's slightly uncomfortable and very doable. Microstory, a client dreaded budgeting. We set soothe, 1-minute breath, playlist on. Standards, 5 minutes to open accounts, 10 to categorize, 2 to decide 1 change. Stretch, increase by 2 minutes weekly. She wanted to get into the zone first. We capped it. Week 2, she reported the strangest outcome: pride. Not because money was fixed, because she kept a promise while anxious. That pride is the antidote to dependence. The simple version is: Soothe steadies the hand, Standards aim the arrow, Stretch strengthens the bow. Run the cycle daily in small doses. You'll feel kinder, not softer, stronger, not harder. Most importantly, you'll train your nervous system that relief follows responsibility, which ends the dependence loop. Applying the framework, relationships. Let's plug Soothe Standards Stretch into love, where dependence hides best. First swap. From reassurance requests to clear requests with limits. Reassurance sounds like, "Do you still love me?" Clear request sounds like, "I'm spiking. Could you send one check-in at 9 p.m? Soothe first. Run your self-soothing ladder for 5 minutes. Breath, grounding, 1 page of facts, so you're not outsourcing panic. Then standard. 1 check-in, specific time, no mid-window pings. Stretch. Lengthen the window by 30 minutes next week. Taper on purpose, so co-regulation doesn't calcify into dependence. Repair scripts matter. Integration uses a simple formula. I felt X, I need Y, here's my part. Soothe first so you don't weaponize feeling. Standard. Keep it under 90 seconds, own a behavior, make 1 request. I felt dropped when the plan changed, I need a heads up. I can post the update in our chat so we both see it. Stretch. Tolerate their perspective without defending. Ask, what part is fair to you? Here's the weird part. Boundaries get clearer when you move from vibe to math. Boundary math is if / then and when. Standard. If texts after 10 continue, I'll mute until 7 and respond then. You're not policing them, you're promising your action. Soothe helps you hold tone. Stretch is actually doing it once. After 1 rep, your system learns you can protect your sleep without a fight. Co-regulation versus dependence comes down to frequency and tapering. Healthy couples agree on anchors, morning touch base, a midday emoji, evening debrief. That's structure, not surveillance. The standard includes a taper plan. For the next 2 weeks, we'll do a 9 p.m. check-in. Then we'll shift to every other day while I run my ladder. Stretch is tolerating the gap with supports you control. Breath, playlist, quick walk, friend call, before asking for more. Upgrade needs into protocols both people can follow. I need reassurance becomes protocol A. If I spike, I'll run step 1 to 3. At 9 we connect for 10 minutes. If you're unavailable, I'll text the word anchor to my backup and we'll discuss tomorrow. Now your partner isn't your regulator. They're part of a plan. Standards make love safer because they reduce guesswork and covert contracts. Microstory. 1 client used to send 20, "Are you mad?" texts whenever her partner went quiet. We installed Soothe, Breathe, Facts List, 3-minute body shake. Standard. 1 message. "I'm spiking. I'll run my ladder and check in at 8, then silence." Stretch. Extend the window by 15 minutes weekly. Within a month, she could ride 2 hours with no spiral. The relationship got lighter because the asks got cleaner. Conflict? Use the 3S pre-flight. Soothe. 2 minutes of exhale-weighted breaths. Plant feet. Name 3 true things. Standard. 1 observation. 1 impact. 1 request. No mind reading. Time cap of 10 minutes. Stretch. Pause and resume tomorrow if voices rise twice. The growth edge is staying in the conversation long enough to log 1 rep of directness without rage or retreat. Another lever. Retire coded tests. Tests are dependence in disguise. If they notice, I'm safe. Clean bids replace them. I'd like a hug, not sighs and silence. Soothe to withstand a no without collapsing. Standard. Ask once. If no, run your ladder, don't escalate. Stretch. Ask again next day without sarcasm. You're training security by being explicit and survivable. Jealousy and tracking loops. Soothe first, then standardize transparency. Share your plan for tonight by 5. I won't message during your dinner. We'll debrief at 10. Stretch. Skip location sharing 1 night per week while you both run your ladders. The point isn't distrust, it's decoupling safety from constant surveillance. Break rupture. Repair cycles that never resolve. Soothe to reduce blame. Standard. Repair within 24 hours. Name your part specifically. Propose 1 behavior change. Set a review in a week. Stretch. Hold the new behavior under mild stress. If sarcasm sneaks back, pause and reset without theatrics. Reps make trust, not speeches. What about truly unmet needs? The adult frames limits and exits. Soothe so you don't plead. Standard. State minimum viable agreements. Respectful tone. Reliability windows. Financial clarity. Stretch. Hold the consequence once. If we miss 3 rent dates, I'll move out by the 30th. Love isn't a hall pass for chaos. Finally, protect passion with standards, not pressure. Soothe performance anxiety. Standard a weekly connection ritual with a start time and no phone window. Stretch small honest disclosures. 1 fantasy, 1 preference, 1 boundary. Intimacy deepens when both people can bring truth without rescuing or testing. Run 3S in relationships, and you'll feel warmer and sturdier. Co-regulation becomes a bridge, not a crutch. Boundaries become promises, not ultimatums. And love stops being a nervous system management plan and starts being a place where 2 adults help each other grow. Applying the framework: work, money, habits. Work first. Replace mood-based planning with system-based cues. Soothe is your ignition, not your engine. 1 minute of box breathing. Stand up, sip water, open the dock. Standards decide the play. A 15 to 25-minute focus block, 1 outcome defined before you start. Write 3 ugly bullet points, send the draft. Log 2 outreach emails. Stretch nudges the edge. Add 5 minutes next week, or deliver the same output with 10% less time. You're training predictability under imperfect feelings. A simple daily loop. Soothe for 60 seconds. Name the next atomic action out loud. Start a 15-minute timer. Stop when it ends. Debrief for 2 minutes. What worked, 1 tweak. That micro debrief is where your adult updates the plan instead of your child chasing vibes. If you blow past the timer because you feel inspired, that's also mood-led. Respect the stop. Capacity grows when you decide, not when dopamine decides. Procrastination? Run the 5, 15, 2. Soothe 5 minutes max. Breath, quick walk, 1-line intention. Standards. Execute 15 minutes, no tabs, no edits, messy allowed. Stretch. 2-minute review, then either continue by choice or deliberately close. The point isn't perfection, it's logging reps where action precedes relief. Over a week, the graph you care about is blocks completed, not motivation level. Meetings and hard conversations at work. Preload a micro-protocol. Soothe. 30 seconds of exhale-weighted breath, plant feet, relax jaw. Standards. 1-sentence agenda, 1 ask, 1 next step. Under 8 minutes if 1:1. Under 15 if group. Stretch. Say the request first, not last, even if your voice shakes. If intensity spikes, pause and reschedule with an agenda. You're teaching your system that clarity is survivable. Now money. The inner child loves spontaneity. The adult loves agreements. Soothe your shame for 1 minute. Hand on chest, a single sentence. Numbers are feedback, not judgment. Standards. A weekly 17-minute money ritual. Same time, same chair. Minute 1, open accounts. Minutes 2 to 8, categorize the last week. Minutes 9 to 14, decide 1 tiny change. Move $10 to savings, swap 1 delivery for groceries, pay the smallest balance. Minutes 15 to 17, log decisions. Stretch by adding 2 minutes per week until you can review without spikes. Pride comes from kept promises, not perfect totals. Budgeting agreements beat, trying to spend less. Pick 3 rules you can hold under stress. Examples. Save the first 5% on payday. Cap dining out to X per week. No purchases over $100 without a 24-hour gap. Soothe urges with a delay ritual. Add to a list, breathe, walk, revisit tomorrow. If you buy after the gap, it's a choice, not a chase. Stretch by tightening 1 rule 5% monthly. Debt anxiety? Flip the order. Soothe 2 minutes. Standards. Send 1 $25 payment today. Email 1 creditor for a hardship plan, or automate the minimums. Stretch. Increase 1 automation by $5 next month. Momentum is medicine. Your nervous system calms when the plan runs without drama. Habits live or die by cue and cap. Soothe to start. Song, breath, a single stretch. Standards specify when, where, what. At 7:15 a.m. in the kitchen, fill the water bottle. At 7:20, walk 10 minutes. At 7:35, cold rinse 15 seconds. Keep streaks small and survivable. Stretch gradually. Add 1 minute, not 10. 1 push-up, not 20. Boring builds belief. Sleep is a capacity multiplier. Soothe the transition. Dim lights, exhale heavy breaths. Phone parked outside the bedroom. Standards. Screens off at 10. Lights out at 10:30. Wake at the same time daily. If you miss, don't punish. Protect the next night. Stretch by inching bedtime earlier. by 10 minutes per week. Track wait time consistency, not hours perfectly slept. Quit the crisis cycle with a weekly integrity review. Soothe shame, 1 minute hand to heart. Data, not drama. Standards. List 3 promises you kept, 1 you missed, 1 system tweak. Build a consequence ladder for chronic misses that's behavioral, not moral. If I skip my Friday finance ritual twice, I do it Saturday 9 a.m. before coffee. If I miss again, I transfer $10 to a friction fund. Small costs keep the adult in charge. Measure competence, reps not vibes. Count focus blocks completed, conversations initiated, invoices sent, workouts started, money sessions logged. Post the counts where you can see them. Every tally is a prediction update. We act first, then feel better. That is independence training disguised as ordinary life. Advanced skills, secure attachment behaviors. Quick bridge. After 2 weeks of running the 3S cycle in small daily reps, your nervous system has enough evidence to add higher skill work without flooding. Now you're ready to layer the behaviors that turn less dependence into more security. Okay, so basically, secure attachment isn't a personality. It's a set of repeatable behaviors under stress. These are the advanced reps that keep love warm without turning it into life support. Start with a self-soothing ladder before you reach out. It's a short, pre-decided sequence you run the moment you spike. Example ladder. For exhale-weighted breaths, name 5 facts in the room, relax your jaw and shoulders, take a 60-second walk, read a 1-paragraph reminder you wrote on a calm day. Cap it at 3 minutes. If distress stays above a 7, then you reach out. This preserves your dignity and protects the relationship from panic pinging. Clean bids for support beat coded tests every time. A clean bid is specific, time-bound, and survivable. I'm spiking. Could you sit with me for 10 minutes at 9 p.m? That's clear. A coded test is murky. Size, silence, sarcasm, or vague posts designed to provoke rescue. Tests train partners to guess. Clean bids train reliability. If they can't meet the bid, your plan still runs. That's security you control. Separation tolerance is the muscle most people never train. Pick small windows and grow them systematically. Start with a 90-minute no-contact block you both know about. You run your ladder, focus on a task, then reconnect at the agreed time. Next week, extend by 15 minutes. If you spiral, don't collapse the agreement, collapse the intensity. Short walk, cold water, music, then back to the block. You're teaching your nervous system that absence isn't abandonment, it's a predictable interval. Repair without groveling or punishing. The script is simple. 1 observation about your behavior, 1 impact on them, 1 amends, 1 specific prevention. I raised my voice, you shut down, I'm sorry. Next time I'll pause, and we'll resume in the morning. Deliver it under 90 seconds. No speeches, no self-flagellation. If you need to cry, cry, then finish the repair. Punishing, icy tone, withheld affection, long sulks, keeps control but kills trust. Groveling, over-apologizing, promising the moon, buys temporary relief and invites future rescues. Clean repair restores integrity and ends the covert contract. Build a personal board of mentors, not rescuers. Mentors calibrate and challenge. Rescuers collude with avoidance. 3 seats on that board. 1 reality checker who tells you when your story leaks. 1 skills coach who gives you the next behavior. 1 compassion anchor who reminds you you're still good while you try again. Rotate whose number you use depending on need. This diversifies co-regulation and reduces pressure on your partner to be your everything. Here's the weird part. Secure folks are generous askers. They don't wait until panic to speak. They pre-negotiate support windows, preferred signals, and timeouts. If I say reset, I need 3 minutes in your hand. That's not dependence, that's standardization. Then they taper asks as capacity rises on purpose. We'll do nightly check-ins for 2 weeks, then shift to every other night. Tapering is how co-regulation becomes training, not tethering. Use clarity cues in live conversations. State your lane. I'm sharing to connect, not to fix. Or, I'm asking for advice, 2 minutes max. These cues prevent misfires that trigger old patterns. If emotions surge, pair 1 hand on chest breath with 1 concrete sentence. I'm at a 7. I can stay if we slow down. That keeps you in the room without letting the child drive. Run a rupture review within 24 hours. Ask 2 questions. What triggered me? And which skill would have helped 1 step earlier? Then set 1 micro-rep for the week. If sarcasm is your tell, Your rep is one direct sentence before sarcasm appears. If reassurance is your loop, your rep is one ladder run before you text. Secure attachment is built in these tiny preemptions. Finally, protect warmth with rituals that don't breed dependence. A weekly state of us check, 20 minutes, 2 prompts, 1 appreciation, 1 small request. Phones away. End with a plan you both can execute. This is adult love, open-hearted, standards-backed, and resilient enough that your inner child feels safe while your adult leads. Trauma, safety, and precision compassion. Let's get precise about trauma, because sloppiness here fuels dependence. Safety isn't the finish line, it's the launch pad. Your nervous system needs moments of calm to learn. But if "I must feel safe first" becomes the rule, you'll never train the skills that create lasting safety. The adult view is different. Brief safety to start, then structured challenge, then consolidate with care. Here's the key distinction: capacity limits versus comfort limits. Capacity limits are genuine flaws: seizures, dissociation, blackout panic, active suicidality. Those require clinical containment and slower pacing. Comfort limits are, "I don't like this spike." If you treat comfort like capacity, you'll stall for years. If you treat capacity like comfort, you'll re-traumatize yourself. Precision compassion is choosing the right response for the right limit. This mirrors what trauma-informed clinicians teach. Dose the stressor, pair it with skill, and let the nervous system file a new prediction of safety. Okay, so basically, graded exposure is your friend when used with skill practice, not as punishment. Instead of face your fear, think dose your fear like medicine. Pick a target that lands around a 4 or 5 out of 10. Preload your Soothe tools, name your standard, and take one tiny step that creates new learning. Then end on success, not on collapse. Your system encodes, "I can even hear." Example: a survivor of medical trauma avoids checkups. Precision plan: soothe 1 minute. Book an appointment with a trusted provider for a tour, not a procedure. Standard: 5-minute visit. Ask 1 question, leave while calm. Stretch next time. Sit in the waiting room 10 minutes, then schedule a basic check. Each rep pairs arousal with agency. That's trauma-informed growth. Another example: conflict triggers shutdown. Precision plan: rehearse 1 sentence in a mirror. "I want to finish this tomorrow at 10. Soothe briefly, deliver it in a low-stakes chat, exit cleanly. You didn't process your childhood tonight. You logged a rep of adult containment. Next week, add 1 direct request. Small, repeatable, survivable. When is professional trauma therapy essential? When symptoms disrupt daily functioning despite structured reps. When dissociation or flashbacks hijack agency. When self-harm or substance reliance spikes. When body-based patterns won't shift with basic skills. Modalities like EMDR, TFCBT, or somatic therapies help your system file what was never filed. A good clinician will still push for graded practice in life, not just insight in session. Here's the weird part: trauma work can backfire when the identity fuses with it. Re-traumatization as identity sounds like, "I'm the person who can't handle X, so the world must bend." Real trauma healing aims at range. You'll still have tender spots, but your map expands. The goal isn't to never spike, it's to spike and still run your play. Precision compassion also means calibrating your soothing. Too little, and you white-knuckle, which teaches hard equals hell. Too much, and you teach relief equals escape. Set caps. If you routinely blow through caps, reduce the dose of exposure until you can honor both soothe and standard. That's not quitting, that's intelligent loading. Microstory. A client had a car crash history and avoided driving. We didn't start with highways. Week 1. Sit in the driver's seat 3 minutes, engine off, breathe, leave. Week 2. Ignition on, 200 feet in a parking lot, stop while calm. Week 4. 1 right turn around the block. 2 months later, she did 10 minutes on side streets. We never chased bravery, we chased reps that proved, "I can stop while steady." Everything clicked when she realized safety feelings followed safety behaviors. Exit routes planned, phone away, breath paced, route chosen, then drive. She didn't wait to feel ready, she made ready feel. That's the adult leading the child. A quick checklist for trauma-smart training. Name your true capacity limits. Pick a target at a 5 out of 10. Preload soothe. Execute 1 standard. End on competence. Debrief in 2 minutes. Schedule the next rep. If you spike above an 8, shorten dose next time. If you coast below a 3, nudge intensity slightly. We're training, not testing. Bottom line, safety opens the door, standards walk you through, compassion catches you if you wobble. Use all three deliberately, and trauma stops being your manager and becomes your teacher. Rapid-fire objections and reframes. Isn't this victim blaming? No. Fault and responsibility aren't the same job. Fault lives in the past. Responsibility lives in the present. You didn't choose your nervous system, your caregivers, or your triggers. You do choose your training plan now. Precision compassion means we validate why it's hard and still ask, what's the next rep I can run today? But my needs are valid. Yes, and most of them are your job to meet first. Valid doesn't automatically mean outsourced. Reframe needs as inputs for agreements. I need steadiness becomes, I'll run my ladder at 8, we'll check in at 9, and if that slips, I'll use my backup. Your needs guide design, they don't replace it. Isn't co-regulation healthy? It is, when it's tapered and paired with skill building. Think scaffolding, not permanent structure. If the dosage has to rise to keep you functional, you're in dependence. Co-regulate to start, then reduce frequency as your reps go up. Build a plan that makes your partner optional, not essential, during everyday spikes. I tried standards, I relapsed. Of course you did. Systems fail at the edges. Iterate, don't moralize. Tighten the cap on soothing, shrink the first step, add a visible cue, move the action earlier in the day, or recruit a spotter. Adults don't expect perfection, they expect reviews. Debrief like a pilot. What failed, where what? Tweak now. Won't I become cold if I lead with standards? Warmth plus boundaries is what secure feels like. The nurturing parent still comforts, the adult still chooses. Yes, this is scary, yes we're going. Cold is disconnection. Standards with care are connection with reliability. People relax around you when your words match your behaviors. What if my partner can't meet me halfway? Then your adult clarifies minimum viable agreements and acts on the results. Keep your standards for your actions either way. If basic safety and respect aren't met after clear requests and time, the consequence is a boundary you execute, not a lecture you repeat. Isn't trauma different? Yes. That's why we use graded exposure, not force. Dose the challenge at a 5 out of 10, end on success, and keep reps small. Precision compassion means distinguishing capacity limits from comfort limits. If you keep spiraling above 8, bring a clinician in. You still train, just at the right intensity. But emotions are messages. Aren't I supposed to listen? Listen, then lead. Emotions tell you something matters. The adult decides what that something means for behavior today. Treat feelings like weather reports. Pack a jacket, but the train still leaves. When you act first and soothe after, the message stays valuable without hijacking your schedule. If I stop processing so much, won't old wounds run the show? Over-processing often keeps them running the show. Behavior rewires belief faster than rumination. 2 minutes of reflection, one standard, one small stretch, then move. Insight consolidates after you act. You're teaching your system. We feel, we choose, we do. What if standards make me anxious? Good. Mild anxiety means you're at your growth edge. Cap soothing, run the rep, end on competence. If you're flooded, the standard is off by a notch. Lower the load one step and run it tomorrow. Anxiety isn't a stop sign. It's a signal to scale the dose. Is this just productivity in disguise? No. This is capacity building. Productivity counts output. Capacity counts what you can do under stress without self-betrayal. Some days the standard is making the call. Other days it's pausing and rescheduling cleanly. The metric is integrity, not hustle. Can I still be tender with my inner child? Please do. Tenderness is fuel. Just don't hand the keys over. Comfort the child, recalibrate the parent, then let the adult drive. The child part feels safest when it trusts the adult will show up, not when the world rearranges to avoid tears. What if I don't know my standards yet? Start with one domain and one rule that's small and specific. Send the draft by 4. Walk 10 minutes at lunch. One clean request per conflict. Write it down. Say it out loud. Honor it once. Expand gradually. Standards grow from evidence, not vibes. Final reframe. You aren't abandoning softness. You're giving it a spine. Compassion without structure breeds dependence. Structure without compassion breeds brittleness. The integration we're after is both, so you can feel deeply and still keep your word. The one shift that ends dependence. Here it is, simple and sharp. Replace "do I feel ready" with "what standard did I pre-commit to?" Feelings get a vote, standards get the veto. That one swap moves you from mood-based living to identity-based acting. Your adult decides on a calm day. Your parts execute on the hot day. Make it operational. Pre-commit 1 or 2 tiny, visible standards per domain. Relationships. 1 clean request per conflict. A single check-in window. A 24-hour repair rule. Work. 1 15-minute block before noon. Ship a messy draft by 4, 2-minute debrief. Money. A 17-minute weekly ritual. No purchases over $100 without a 24-hour gap. Health. 10-minute walk daily. Lights out by 10:30, phone parked outside. Write them where you'll see them. That visibility is your tether. Preload supports like a pit crew, not like a safety net. A 2-minute soothe menu, 1 anchor contact, a short script for hard sentences, a timer, a checklist. Place them upstream, so you don't negotiate mid-trigger. The rule: you can use supports, but you can't skip the standard. If you blow a cap, you still act. If you miss the act, you repair the miss the same day with a smaller rep. Then execute anyway. The sequence is non-negotiable. Soothe just enough to move. Execute the standard you already chose. Soothe again after to consolidate. That post-action soothing is the magic. It teaches your predictive brain that relief follows responsibility. Next time, the spike's smaller because your model updated. After execution, review like a scientist, not a judge. 2 minutes, 2 questions. What helped me keep the standard, and what made it harder than it needed to be? Tweak 1 variable. Earlier start, smaller step, tighter cap, clearer cue, different spotter. Repeat tomorrow. Consistency beats intensity, because prediction updates need repetition more than inspiration. Identity is the glue. Say this sentence before you act. I'm the adult who shows up for me. Then prove it in the smallest way available. 1 email, 1 sentence, 1 walk to the mailbox, 1 clean ask. Tiny proofs compound. In 2 weeks, you won't just believe you can act under arousal. Your body will predict it. Here's the counterintuitive part. When standards lead, you feel safer faster. Not because life got easier, but because you got more reliable to yourself. That reliability is the real source of self-trust. Co-regulation becomes a choice, not a requirement. Soothing becomes comfort, not a condition. The child calms because the adult is in the room. If you need 1 starter pack, take this. Write 1 standard per domain on a sticky note. Soothe 2 minutes max execute, 1 small rep before noon. Debrief 2 minutes. At night, circle the ones you kept. Tomorrow, keep them again. That's the 1 shift lived. You'll still have spikes, setbacks, and messy days. Good. You're alive. The difference now is the order. Feelings inform. Standards decide. Actions teach. That order ends dependence because it trains your nervous system that freedom isn't the absence of discomfort. It's the presence of follow-through. Your adult self is the healer. Here's the takeaway. Dependence fades when compassion serves standards, then action proves it. Your inner child isn't the driver. Your adult is. Led with pre-committed standards, soothe just enough to move, and stretch in tiny, boring reps that grow range. Want more like this? Subscribe for deep dive frameworks. Watch the next episode on building anti-fragile self-esteem. Drop 1 standard you'll set this week in the comments. Then keep it today.